Hvala. Ja želim da pozdravim gospodina Rutte, a njegovu
Thank you. I wish to welcome Mr. Rutte and his delegation. And we're extremely grateful for this opportunity to have a lengthy discussion. Of course, he has demonstrated understanding for the situation we're going through. It is my obligation, but also a wish to thank you for a very good cooperation. It is our commitment to furthering that cooperation. We have already made some steps in the past period, adopted some reports, and that is very good. But what is a joint concern here is the increasingly complex situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina. It is a fact that in the presidency and throughout Bosnia and Herzegovina we have different views of this situation, and that's what brought us to this, led us to this crisis. No one can deny that. But what we can do is consider this situation in a sober and realistic way and emphasize what's most important. Through the opinions we stated today, you could tell that what is the main cause of this crisis. I'm going to say to you what I said to Mr. Rutte, and this has to do with Mr. Schmidt. I deeply believe that Mr. Schmidt cannot save Bosnia and Herzegovina, but the Republika Srpska and the Federation can. And I believe that that's what we have to work on. And the things that we see as a barrier, as a huge problem, need to be removed in order for us to be able to live a normal life, a democratic normal life, to enjoy democracy, to make serious decisions that have to do with our future. I also took this opportunity to say that I'm happy and I would welcome an augmented EUFOR, but also NATO forces, because I believe that should be good for Bosnia and Herzegovina as a whole, given the mass production of misinformation from the past period, but also for the reason of various threats that we have so far seen only in the verbal form, but I don't want it to go anywhere further. We've heard some threats in the Republika Srpska in the past period, and this was an opportunity for me to restate our commitment as members of the presidency to the cooperation between the armed forces and NATO. We want it to be good. It's already good. Of course, everybody agreed on that. There are no problems there. But what I underline is the fact that there is no need to drag the armed forces into political debates, and I stated my pleasure, displeasure with some of the calls for illicit use of the armed forces, and that is impossible. We all need to know, we all need to send out the message that that's not possible. The armed forces are where they are, they're professional armed forces, they work in accordance with the law, and they will continue to do just that, and they will continue to cooperate with all those they already have a good, solid cooperation with. So these are things that we had to discuss at the meeting. Of course, the crisis has brought us into a situation where we all have a big headache in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I think it was completely uncalled for. I think it's important to build a stronger understanding with NATO forces, but also with everyone else present here who have good intentions towards this country. I see Mr. Rutte as someone who is indeed, and who wants to be, but is indeed a real friend, a genuine friend of everyone in Bosnia and Herzegovina. By that I mean all citizens of this country. And that's how we define this meeting, and that's how we led this meeting and how we converse today. There are things that we agree upon, there are things that we do not agree upon, but what I really wanted to emphasize today is the need to remove the causes rather than just deal with consequences. Dealing with consequences means that you always put blame on someone without looking into the background. These are complicated times, and it is necessary to look at the whole picture. Of course, we'll go one by one. Now I will add something at the end if there is a need. Now, are you going to, or Becirovic? Becirovic, all right. I invite a member of the presidency, His Excellency Dr. Denis Becirovic, to address you.
Secretary General of NATO, dear friend, respected media representatives, this is my sixth meeting with Mr. Rutte in just over 1 year, and I want to say publicly that I personally witness to that the NATO Secretary General is a great friend of Euro-Atlantic multi-ethnic Bosnia and Herzegovina. And thank you for overall support to our country. The meeting we had with NATO Secretary General is very encouraging for all citizens and peoples in Bosnia and Herzegovina. What is important is that NATO Secretary General pointed to 5 important issues. First, that there is long-standing commitment of NATO to Bosnia and Herzegovina, that it's very important for NATO, the region, Europe, that there is stable Bosnia and Herzegovina, that it's very important that NATO Secretary General clearly said that he supports independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity of Bosnia and Herzegovina. One sentence is of particular importance for all citizens in our country, and that is that NATO does not accept and will not allow security vacuum in Bosnia and Herzegovina. That is probably the key message. And finally, a very important message for stabilization of situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina is the message of NATO Secretary General that he shared with us, and that is full support to the role and mandate of the High Representative. My message to people today is that we need to stabilize situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina, that all in Bosnia and Herzegovina should observe and comply with constitutional order, authorities and competencies of the state and lower levels of government. And the presumption for preservation of peace and stability is compliance with and respect of constitutional order and unhindered work of judicial institutions in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I told to NATO Secretary General that those have been the most difficult times since 1995. We had an opportunity to see a brutal attack on the Constitution of Bosnia and Herzegovina. As a member of the Presidency of Bosnia and Herzegovina, I reacted promptly, sent my request to the Constitutional Court to assess those scandalous laws that were adopted by the entity National Assembly. The Constitutional Court rendered temporary measures on last Friday. Everyone is obliged to comply with final and binding decisions of the Constitutional Court. What we have for the first time since 1995 is actually unique unity of the state authorities and international community, strong condemnation of what is happening. This was being condemned by the US, UK, Turkey, France, European Union, NATO, the whole world, because everyone is aware that some started off in the direction of a dangerous destabilization that has to be stopped in the interest of Bosniak Serbs, Croats, and anyone, any citizen of this country. This crisis situation did not happen overnight. It's a result of a continuous attempt to destroy the Dayton Peace Agreement. It must be stopped. And speaking of NATO, not a single country in the world outside of NATO does not have such strong bonds as Bosnia and Herzegovina has. There is Annex 1.8 of the Dayton Peace Agreement, which is clearly assigning the role to NATO and Bosnia and Herzegovina. We are thankful to NATO because it provided peace in Bosnia and Herzegovina. It stabilized peace in post-Dayton era, and NATO plays a very important role in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Unfortunately, though, due to those dramatic circumstances, we were supposed to discuss in more detail more important things. We submitted important programs to NATO. We need to accelerate Euro-Atlantic path, but we can discuss that once we put a stop to this attempt of collision, of collapse of the constitutional order. The institutions of Bosnia and Herzegovina are ready to defend the constitutional order of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Institutions of the international community exist on the basis of the Dayton Peace Agreement, and it's very important that they work together and that we together protect peace and stability in this part of Europe. destabilization in this part of Europe would benefit to Moscow only.
Now I invite member of the Presidency of Bosnia and Herzegovina, His Excellency Komsic, to address you. Mr. Rutte, ladies and gentlemen, members of the press, I apologize. I believe that it was probably more appropriate to ask our guest to speak following the chair of the presidency. We apologize for that bit of disorder. I'm not going to take too much of your time. Everything we heard from Mr. Rutte at the meeting with the Presidency of Bosnia and Herzegovina, I am willing to sign under it, and there's no need for me to repeat all that. I hope that Mr. Rutte will say everything he said to us during the meeting. Secondly, another thing that I would emphasize now is responsibility of the three of us as members of the Presidency of Bosnia and Herzegovina for the overall climate in Bosnia and Herzegovina, because the number of cameras that we see today here, the presence of the media speaks volumes about the importance of this visit and how many people eagerly await news from this meeting. So whichever way we look at the things, however we perceive them, the ultimate responsibility for the situation in this country falls upon us, including the three of us, because people in Bosnia and Herzegovina look at us, waiting for good or bad news. It is our duty, in my opinion, to at least try to deliver mostly good news to citizens of BiH. And the third thing that nobody has mentioned, and I hope that Mr. Rutte will look back at that, refer to that as well, because it was mentioned during the meeting, is the need for Bosnia and Herzegovina to set aside a larger amount of money for the sector of defense in order to keep up with NATO standards, since we've been saying that we wish to become a full-fledged member of NATO, which is indeed another thing that deserves our attention and some discussion, about which nobody in Bosnia and Herzegovina is talking. In the budget that we will have an opportunity to adopt today during the presidency session, or at least state our opinions about it, the opposite has been done. The amount allocated to defense is not even close to the standard of 2% of the GDP, not to mention the current situation on the European continent and within NATO, where even higher allocations are required. That's all from me. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Rutte, for visiting Bosnia and Herzegovina, and thank you for everything you said during the meeting. And now I would like to ask you to state his opinion or the opinion of the NATO alliance. Thank you very much, Mr. Rutte, Secretary General of NATO, His Excellency Mark Rutte.
Your Excellencies, good afternoon. It's my pleasure to meet all of you here today in Sarajevo. 3 decades after the Dayton Peace Agreement, I can tell you, NATO remains firmly committed to the stability of this region and to the security of Bosnia and Herzegovina. I have 3 main messages to deliver today, but one is really the main message. First, our commitment to Bosnia and Herzegovina is steadfast. NATO fully supports the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Bosnia and Herzegovina. The Dayton Peace Agreement is the cornerstone of peace in this country and must be respected, and we support the office of the High Representative. Any actions that undermine Dayton, the constitutional order, or national institutions are unacceptable. Inflammatory rhetoric and actions are dangerous. They pose a direct threat to Bosnia and Herzegovina's stability and security. But here comes my real main message. It will be up to the political leaders of Bosnia and Herzegovina to take their responsibility here. And that is you 3, the 3 of you. There is no other show in town. You have got to do this. And I said it also in the meeting. You asked me to repeat what I said in the meeting. And this was my main message. This country is looking at the 3 of you. This is about personal leadership. make this country proud of its presidency and solve this problem. And it will very much not only help this country forward, but also the region and the whole of Europe. Of course, I hear concerns about the security situation. But let's be clear, this is not 1992. And we will not allow a security vacuum to emerge. The international community is here and committed to continuing our strong support, including through EUFOR and NATO. I know that EUFOR is fully prepared to uphold a safe and secure environment in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And I look forward to visiting Camp Budimir later today. We will not allow hard-won peace to be jeopardized. NATO will continue to support you on your European and on your Euro-Atlantic path, on which you are advancing. We do this along with our international partners, including the European Union, as well as the High Representative, again, whose authority must be preserved. It is essential that the political leaders of Bosnia and Herzegovina do their share as well. The entire region will benefit from a genuine commitment to reconciliation and lasting peace. I'm stressing this same point to all actors in the region. Let me really underscore this. To all actors in the region. And finally, we are committed to our cooperation and want to see it grow. We already have a solid partnership. And we are prepared to build on NATO's long-standing support to your country's armed forces and to defense and security reforms. And yes, it would be great if you could spend somewhat more on your armed forces. I agree. We are well equipped to do this, including through our headquarters in Sarajevo, our newly established political cell, and our defense capacity building package. So we are ready to move forward in lockstep with you and in line with your sovereign decisions. Your sovereignty and your territorial integrity, as set out in the Dayton Accords, remain fundamental to both the security and the stability of the region. So Bosnia and Herzegovina can count on NATO's unwavering support. But let me come back to what is really my main message today. You have got to solve this, the three of you. I really believe this is your appointment with history. Again, thank you so much for having me here today. And of course, I look forward to our continuing discussions and to your visit to Brussels in April. Again, thank you so much.
Hvala na posjeti. Zaista, evo I ja da sad
Thank you very much. Thank you for your visit. I always like Mr. Becirovic to speak his mind, and then I speak after him. First of all,
if we are going now to talk about aspects, I think that it's not correct that we now say what we were told by Secretary General. He just said what he told us. It's not fair that we explain who told us what. I think this was an excellent opportunity to talk in an open way about things that are burdening Bosnia and Herzegovina. Of course, we all agree that we should preserve the territorial integrity. We said that it was not jeopardized. We said we talked about multi-ethnic character of the country. It's no question about that. We also talked that we need to cooperate with NATO. We cooperate with NATO. So we have diverging views on the membership, but we didn't touch on that. We also did our operational part related to some reports and so on. We all said that it's very important to preserve safety, security situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And it's not a big thing. If the armed forces are complying with the law, no threat. If police agencies are complying with laws, no threats. It's clear who does what are the competences. So we don't have any problems between the two entities unless we have some crazy people, hopefully not. So those are political processes. This lies in the realm of political process. My colleagues believe that it's normal that the foreigner imposes a law. They believe that actually the judicial ruling should be observed, and I say that they should not be the result of judicial violence. But I agree with NATO Secretary General and that he supports High Representative. There are some member countries that do not support him. If the High Representative is an Annex 10 of the Dayton Agreement, no problem. But if someone behaves based on a political conference and to make a havoc in one country, then I am not for that. But that will not diminish my cooperation with NATO, my relations with NATO, the EU, the US, or anyone here today. I say what I think, and I stay with that what I think. So this crisis was produced by Mr. Schmidt, and why do you speak about Milorad Dodik? Because what happened to Milorad Dodik is a consequence of that. Whether we're going to accept it or not, it's our private thing. So we need actually to bring it back to a political narrative realm, and I support what NATO Secretary said, that we should talk more. Unfortunately, we don't. And I support the position of the Republika Srpska that the country should not be privatized by one at the expense of others, because the Republika Srpska prevailing opinion is that this whole country is privatized by one constituent people, while at the same time other two constituent peoples are not given the same rights. So I am in favor of having much better, more stable cooperation with NATO, and I would like to say that I'm really thankful that we had an opportunity to talk in an open, frank way. What we agree on, it doesn't matter, but we had an opportunity for quality discussion in a meeting. The thing is that we have diverging views. Do we need to work together to change some things? Yes, we need to work. Is there a political will for that? Well, it doesn't depend only on Željka Cvijanovic, it depends on many others. Let us be clear. So thank you, Mr. Rutte. This was, for me, really a good meeting, and it's, there will be no questions, so thank you.
Delegacija i predstavnicima medija. Izjave za medije su završene.